వ్యూవర్స్, ఈ వీడియోలు మిస్ కాకుండా ఉండాలి అంటే మీరు సబ్స్క్రైబ్ బటన్ని ప్రెస్ చేయండి, పక్కనే ఉన్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ని యాక్టివేట్ చేసుకోండి. హాయ్ స్టూడెంట్స్, వెల్కమ్ టు ఆన్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ ఇంటర్మీడియట్ ఫస్ట్ ఇయర్ ఇంగ్లీష్ మీడియం. Dear students, we are discussing the second unit. So in the second unit, we discuss the indifference curve analysis. So in the indifference curve analysis, in this video, I am going to analyze what are the properties of indifference curve. Let me explain the properties of indifference curve. Indifference curve analysis. In the indifference curve analysis, we are discussing the properties or features of indifference curve analysis. How can we explain the properties of indifference curve? So here, when we analyze the indifference curve analysis, and before we are going to analyze a few words about the ordinal utility. Ordinal utility. What is the ordinal utility? Which means the utility which can be comparison between one commodity to another commodity. Here, if you want to analyze the ordinal utility, we have to need the two more commodities. Why? Because it is a comparison. The comparison, when we go to the comparison, we need two more commodities. So the utility, the satisfaction derived from the goods and services, that can be measured, or that can be comparison between one commodity to another commodity. This is A and this is B. One commodity to another commodity. This is called ordinal utility. The ordinal utility is also known as indifference curve analysis. Ordinal utility is also known as indifference curve analysis. What are the properties of indifference curve analysis? What are the properties are there? Let me analyze. The properties of indifference curves are here. One is IC curve. IC curve parallel to OX axis. Or first one is IC curve parallel to OX axis. Is IC curve parallel to OX axis? Let me say this is OX axis and this is OY. This is Y good, and here X good. This is Y good and this is X good. Here parallel to OX axis, this is IC. This is IC curve. So is this IC curve? It is the properties of IC curve. Properties of IC curve. How can we say? Suppose, what is the IC curve? When the X good increases and the Y good decreases. This is the properties of indifference curve. So this is when the X good increases and Y good should be reduced. When the Y good reduces, automatically increases the X good. So here X and Y both, it is a negative action. Negative means opposite action. Here once again you observe, and this is OM, OX good, and X good increases to OM1 and X good decreases to M0. The X goods are changes, but there is no changes in Y good, isn't it? The changes in X good, but there is no changes in Y good. Means what is according to the indifference curve explains as when the X good increases, Y goods to be reduced, but only the changes in X good, no changes in Y good. Due to this is not a indifference curve. Means always IC curves not parallel to, is means not parallel to OX axis. IC curve not parallel to OX axis. Okay, so this is the one of the properties of, it is not a one properties of indifference curve. So it is not a property of indifference curve. One thing. And another thing is IC curve, second one. See here. Is IC curve parallel to OY axis? Is IC curve parallel to OX axis? See here. This is a Y good and this is a X good and this is a IC curve. Is IC curve parallel to OY axis? Is IC curve parallel to OY axis or vertical? Means, let me say, this is a and it is a B. There is a changes in Y good but no changes in X good. There is a changes in Y good, no changes in X good. Okay. So the IC curve is parallel to OY axis. So it is IC curve parallel to OX axis? No. Means IC curve not parallel to OX axis. Why? Because only the changes in Y good, no changes in X good. So that's why there is a what is the, according to indifference curve, X good increases and Y good should be reduced. But there is no action of this changes, only the changes in Y good, no changes in X good. So this is not a property of indifference curve. So this is not a property. And next one. Is IC curve positive? Is IC curve positive? Let us see. So this is a IC curve. The IC curve is positive. What happens if the IC curve will be positive? Say here, this is previous X and this is Y and this is a X. So X changes, the changes X, but the Y also change. What is the change? X increases and Y also increases. X increases. Okay, the X good increases and also Y good also increases. So that's why, what is the law for indifference curve? When the X good increases and Y good should be reduced. But this is not related to the indifference curve. So due to both are increases, X increases and Y also increases. So this is not a property of indifference curve. So is IC curve is positive, which means IC curve not positive. Always the IC curves are not positive. Okay, so this is a IC curves are not positive. Then IC curves are negative. IC curves are negative. How? Here. This is the IC curve. The IC curve is, so here, this is Y good and this is a X good. See, this is Y good and this is a X good. Here, what happened? Y good decreases and X good increases. y good decreases, x good increases, and here y good decreases and x good increases. Okay, so this is the action of IC curves. So always the IC curves are negative. Always the IC curves are negative. Means and moreover, this is the origin to OX. Origin to OX. Here. Origin to OX. This is also one of the feature of indifference curve. Always the IC curves are negative. Or negative means downwards from left to right. The curves downwards from left to right is called negative slope. The above IC curve curve gives more and below IC curve gives low satisfaction. The above IC curve gives more and below IC curve gives low satisfaction. Y good, X good here. This is IC curve. And this is another IC curve, IC2. And this is another IC curve, IC3. See here. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. And here is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The IC2 gives us more satisfaction than IC1. The above the IC curves move left to right, move from left to right, the curves will give us more satisfaction. Here IC2 gives more satisfaction than IC1. IC3 gives more satisfaction than IC2. Is it? So if we move the curves are from left to right, the satisfaction will be give more. If the curves will move from right to left, the curves will give us the less satisfaction. Okay, so the above IC curve gives more satisfaction and the below IC curve gives the low satisfaction. But one thing to be noted here, the all points on IC curve will give us same satisfaction. See here 100%, here 100, and here is also 100, here is also 100, 100. The above IC curve 200, 200, 200, and then 200. And the above is 300, 300, 300, 300. The below curve gives less satisfaction. The above curve gives more satisfaction. But on the IC curve, the all points will give us same satisfaction. That is very important point. So that is, don't forget that point. Here is also A, point A, for example, A 100, B 100, C 100, D, E, F. All points will give us same satisfaction. Okay, all points will give same satisfaction, but the above curve will give more satisfaction. The below curve gives us less satisfaction. So this is also one of the properties of indifference curve. And next one is, say, IC curves are not intersect each other. IC curves are not intersect each other. So this is IC1 and this is IC2. IC1. See here, any two IC curves are not intersect each other. any two IC curves are not intersect each other. Say here the both are decreases, but both are here equal. Here the above IC curve gives more satisfaction, the below IC curve gives low satisfaction, but here both are equal. So equal whenever, always the any two IC curves are not equal. Is it not equal? So and it goes to, it is a higher and it is a lower than the IC1. So it is not a increases, it is not a related to IC curve. So what is the IC curve property? If the X good increases and the Y good should be reduced, but this is not a one of the properties of indifference curve. So these are the properties of indifference curve. So dear students, so this is the way of the presentation of ప్రాపర్టీస్ ఆఫ్ ఇండిఫరెన్స్ కర్వ్. సో ఈ వీడియో నచ్చితే మీరు లైక్ చేయండి, తర్వాత మీ ఫ్రెండ్స్ షేర్ చేయండి, కొత్త వాళ్ళైతే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి. థ్యాంక్ యూ.